Hi, it's Stephen Williams with the creditrepairshop.com, and in today's, I decided to do a training today where there's a, you know, everything revolves around credit repair and getting you into the best situation so you can move forward in your life. But there's something that I had thought about, and I always go back through my notes and I look at things that I either did for myself or helping people that I know with their problems with credit and debt. And one of the things that I think that uh, people don't, it's like in the back of people's mind, but it's not really to the forefront. They know that they work hand in hand, but because we get busy, or there's just so much to do when you're trying to repair your credit, is that people start to chop it up into pieces, and they don't understand that really credit and debt works together. And I had kind of made this little illustration here. Is like, this is where a lot of people are right now, and this is the middle of the road, and this is a bridge. What this signifies a bridge. And then this is freedom. This is where everybody wants to be. And freedom is different for everybody. Freedom could be just to have good credit. Freedom could be to have good credit, lots of money. Freedom could be where you don't have any worries and you know that you can get approved, or whatever. Whatever your freedom is, that's where it is. But when it comes to credit, this is like right here what I define that gap is debt. And you can get over here if you have debt, but what I see is that a lot of people that have bad credit, they don't know how to handle their debt, and that's where the whole thing starts to break down. And then no matter, even if you do have good credit, if you have too much debt, if anything was to go wrong, or you'd have a bad month or whatever, and you're not able to service the debt, it will knock you right back over here, as we saw back in the 2008, where a lot of people that made a lot of money, they had houses and stuff, they during the economic downturn, they lost everything, or they lost a large amount of their wealth. And I'm looking at a book. This is a little manual that I wrote, and it was back in 2011 when I was going around talking at churches. A couple of pastor friends of mine, Pastor Mitchell and Apostle, what was it? Can't even remember. He always, when I say Apostle, I forget his name, because it's Pastor Anthony, or Apostle Anthony. I always knew him by Pastor Anthony. But I went around with them, and we were helping some of the men's summits. And the one big thing that I saw when I was going around and when I was talking to people, when I was counseling people, is that debt was the number one issue. And what I had started telling people to do is that you can work on your credit, but you also have to work on your debt at the same time. And what I'm going to do in today's training is we're going to go over, I want you to get out your piece of paper, because I'm going to walk you down exactly what me and my wife did, and what I've trained thousands of people to do on how to get their debt under control. Because no matter what you do to get over here in the freedom category, you're going to have to get your debt under control. And ultimately, you want to pay off all of your debt, or at least pay down your credit cards and all the unsecured debt that you have, if you have payday loans or all of that type of stuff, and just have your mortgage and maybe one vehicle that you're paying on. Because you lose so much money when you're paying out that way, and when you're spending money that you haven't made yet. Any time that you use credit, you're actually spending money on your future. So it's like, if you go and get something on a credit card, you are actually have to allocate money that you're going to be making in the future towards that. And that's where a lot of people get into trouble, is because all of a sudden they have to service all of those payments from the money that they have coming in, and if they don't have enough coming in, all of a sudden they're in trouble. So the first step that I tell people to do, the first step is to decide. Is to decide, to make a decision. A lot of people move forward and they never make a decision. They don't decide that I'm going to do something and I'm going to stick to it. What they do is they just say, okay, I'm going to start working on my debt, but they never make any commitment. So what I tell people to do is to write down on a piece of paper that you are going to decide and that you're going to commit to getting yourself out of debt. You have to make a commitment. And then number 2 is to set up a budget. What I do with that is to set up a budget is you're going to have to go down and you're going to have to list all of your payments. The easy way to do that is to get all of the bills that you paid either the month before, or get all of the bills that come in, and you can do this on a piece of paper, or you could do it on an Excel spreadsheet. I don't want to make it too tough. The most important thing is that you list all of your payments. So if you have your mortgage or rent, you list that. You have your car payment, insurance, if you pay monthly or if you pay every 6 months, whatever. If you pay every 6 months, then you break it down by the month. If you have any credit cards, if you have any student loans, your utilities, gas, water, electric, break them down. So you say water, this is electric, whatever else you might have when it comes to utilities. Break them down. Don't just bundle them all up. If you have the cable, cell phone, list all of them. You need to get all of them. And what you should do is you could put the monthly payment that you're paying for your mortgage. So, and then the payment that you're paying for your car. You want to list all of those down, and then you want to add them up at the end. So if it's $5,000, we'll just round off numbers here. And with your electric bill, I know that fluctuates. It's not going to be the same. Your water bill's not going to be the same. All of this stuff isn't going to be the same. Just get an average. What we're doing is you're going to practice being on a budget. So if you know that all of that stuff is going to be $5,000, and then what you need to put over here is your income. So if let's just say, for instance, you're making $7,000 per month, and you know that your expenses are $5,000, you should have $2,000 per month left over. Now, I know most people that make $10,000 and they only have $5,000 in what I call hard payments. They still have zero money at the end of the month or each week. And that's because what they're doing is they're spending extra money. So now the next thing that you have to do is you have to list your spending. This is where a lot of people get in trouble, and what I've even seen some financial counselors, they don't even get into this side because they just make people list this, and then all of a sudden when they add up everything, they say, okay, you should have $2,000 left over, but at the end of the month they have this month, or each week they ended up having this much. And that's because over here you need to list the spending that you're doing. This is entertainment. It could be movies. It could be like for me, I play golf. It could be horseback riding. Anything, all of the stuff here, you need to list that. And then you say lunch. If you go to lunch for during work, if you don't bring your lunch, you need to add up those. What is it average per week on that? Let's see, gas for your car. That could be over here too, but just, if you didn't list it here, you can also list it over here. So on this side, what you're going to do is you're going to go through, if you had the kids' lunch. Uh, so you want to just go through, and probably the easiest way to do this one is to just go through a week of regular, live your life regular way for a week or two, but keep the receipts on everything that is not a regular household bill. Anything that you spend on this coffee. I'm just thinking of stuff as I go down. So you would keep all of those receipts, and then at the end of the week, in the 2 weeks, you add that up so you can see where a lot of your extra money is going out to dinner, all of those things. So that's where that money there is usually going to be eaten up. Right there is from this side. So you're going to have your regular hard payments that you have to make, and then the rest of it will usually go here, going shopping for clothes, all of that. So you can see how this list here can keep growing and growing and growing. So if you got your piece of paper out, that's what you're going to need to list those, or continue life as you're doing for a couple of weeks, week or two. Keep the receipts, and then when you get home, you can put them to the side, and then at the end of the week you can just add up and see what the different things that you were spending on. Now the next step that you need to do, step 3, step two, set up a budget. Step 3 is your set up a debt elimination plan. And I'm also going to get here to step 4. An emergency fund. So debt elimination plan, the way that I did it is you're going to, with the money, after you allocate what you have to spend towards all of the payments that you have to make, your regular payments, after you've went through and you saw all of the stuff that you're spending money on a weekly basis, like the coffee, entertainment, and all that stuff, you're going to have to decide, number one, to cut your expenses. And the first place that I cut personally was all that list on that side. Because you're going to have to make a serious, that's why I went back to saying you have to decide and commit, because that's really where you're going to have your extra money to be able to start paying down your debt. So what I did is set up the budget, went through the list like I just showed you, and then on the side where I didn't go and go to lunch, I was saving money that way. I used that, I just made my lunch each week. Brought it to work. That was saving money. I made coffee at home, made coffee at the office. That saved money. We stopped going out for a while, or we would go out maybe once or twice a month instead of going every weekend. We cut anything that was not necessary spending. We had cut it. And as a matter of fact, me and my wife had an agreement that we wouldn't even spend more than $50 each week. And so that's how serious we were about getting out of debt at that time. And so from using that money, what we did is we set up that debt elimination plan, and that's where any of your extra money, what you want to do is you want to apply that towards the lowest payment to pay that debt off the fastest. So say for instance you had a credit card was your smallest payment, and the normal payment on that is $50 per month. And after you've saved by not spending extras on that other money that you used to spend just without reason, you would apply as much as you could in a reasonable way, not to go overboard, but in a reasonable way to pay off that credit card. So say for instance that credit card you owed $2,000, and taken away from that money over there, you were able to pay, instead of $50, $150 per month. And you just do that for each debt. So after you pay that $2,000 off on that card. Maybe you had another one, and the minimum payment on that one was $100. Now, when you continue paying the minimum payments on everything until you get to the debt, to the next debt. So, if this one was 100 and you were paying 150 when you had that extra on this one, now you add it to this one, and now instead of $100, you're gonna take that $150 payment that you were paying, and you're going to apply that to that other credit card, and now you're paying $250 per month. And you do that until you start paying everything down. I know you've probably seen that out there with other people. They call it debt snowball, or there's been a whole bunch of different ways that, or different terms for it. But this is something that works. My wife and I had came up with, before I had even heard about a debt snowball. This was actually the exact formula that we use to pay down our debt. And what had happened is, as we got traction and we paid off the first debt and paid off another debt, we saw that that we started, like the snowball started getting bigger, or you started getting more excited about paying off debt. Now, let me show you some other strategies before we get into the emergency fund, or while we're going to get into the emergency fund. A lot of people talk about, well, I don't have money to even really get started. And what I tell people to do is, number one, if you are spending way more than you're making, so say for instance, when you had your extra spending that was on the side, that was actually just spending on credit cards that you really didn't even have that money. So you're making $5,000 a month, and you were spending $7,000, but you were so you're spending, and this is your income, and you had noticed that when you did your list of the incidentals, that's you were spending a couple of grand. That would be a lot, but for this example, you're spending a couple of $1,000s extra. So even if you stop spending on this side, you're gonna be like, hey, I'm still only breaking even. I don't have anything extra to pay more towards my bills. So what I tell people to do is to look at all of your creditors that you're paying payments to: your car payment, your mortgage, credit cards, if you have payday loans, if you have student loans. You need to call all of those people up, and you need to ask for a deferment. So you're going to say, I want to defer my payments 60 to 90 to 180 days if possible. And you tell them that you've put together a plan. Some of them may ask to see your plan. Some of them may just grant it to you. But depending on the period of time that they'll give it, each creditor may be different. But this is something that we had also did, is that we got the deferments on some of the credit cards that we had at that time. And using that money, we paid off some of the smaller debts that we had. And then what happened was, and I'll just use this example, after paying off some of those smaller debts, you could potentially get rid of $1,000 a month in payments, or maybe even $2,000 a month, depending on how much your mortgage is, how much your car payments are. You could pay off a lot of your debt that way. But what I tell people to do is, don't blow that money. Don't get the deferments and then just spend that extra money that you have coming in each month. You need to do the right thing with that money and pay off as much debt as possible. And then by the time all of your payments start rolling back around, a lot of them will probably be gone if they were credit cards or payday loans. And then you will have that extra money aside to be able to start paying off the other debts that are left. And then also with that, I always tell people to put away at least $1,000 to $2,000 for an emergency fund. And that's so if your car breaks down, or you have a emergency dental, or you have a emergency medical bill where you have to pay the co-pay, you're not going to have to put that on a credit card. You're not going to have to get a loan or borrow money from somebody. You'll be able to take care of that by having that emergency fund. This is really a solid plan. It is not a lot of it. Some people always be like, well, what's the big secret on doing this stuff? Really, it's just to have a plan and following through on it. And then when I talk about in step number 5 is to accelerate it. Accelerate your debt elimination plan. By doing that, is you can go out and you can uh, what we did. This is the things that we did. We at that time we had 6 vehicles. It's just me and my wife that were driving. We got rid of all of the other vehicles, sold them, sent them back to the gave them back to the dealership, and then did a settlement to pay the difference if we owed money on the vehicles. uh, get rid of the expenses on that one list, like where if you have a cable bill or internet is too high, either get a better rate on those so you can save money, or get rid of them or combine them, bundle them up for one payment so you don't have a high payment. Get rid of all of the additional debt that you just don't need, to where it's just really bare bones. What happened to my wife and I at that time is that we had got everything down to just having a mortgage and having one car payment at that time, and then we had ended up paying off that vehicle. And so that would be the ultimate plan for you. But that's how you would accelerate it, is that you just look at all of the expenses that you're paying monthly payments on that didn't get paid off, and you want to see what you can cut and not even have to deal with anymore. And part of that might be, if you have a car that's too expensive, you can give it back, make a deal to pay off what they're not able to sell it for, and then get yourself into a cheaper vehicle. It would make a lot more sense. So if you're paying $500 or $600 a month in a payment, when you can get it down to $200, have a nice dependable vehicle. I know at the time a lot. I even went through this where you want to have a nice vehicle, but sometimes you have to pull yourself back to be able to rebuild in the future. And I promise you, if you can do that stuff here, the hard work, you'll get all the stuff that you want when you get back over here on this side, because then you'll be able to get, with good credit, you'll be able to get a vehicle that's a lot better with lower payment, lower interest rate, maybe even pay cash for it. Then number 6 is action. You have to take action. A lot of people that I see with a lot of stuff. I see people that try to start businesses. And that can be part of accelerating, is starting a business and earning extra money. But you have to take action. You have to take massive action. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you're going to get to over here, because a lot of bumps, when you're doing stuff like this, there's a lot of bumps that are going to come in the road. And what I always tell people is that you can't choose your bump. Like if you put together a plan like this and then you knew what bumps were going to come in the road, it would be a lot easier for you to follow through. But I'm just here to tell you from personal experiences that once you start on your way to get to where you want to be, there's going to be a lot of tests, a lot of bumps that come in the road, and nobody, absolutely no one can tell you what bump is going to come right in front of you to try to stop you from getting over here. Nobody can tell you that. You're going to have to go through it yourself. What I'm giving you is the foundation to be able to go through it. If you keep your eyes focused on this, no matter what bumps come in the road, you'll be able to become successful and get to where you want to be, which is freedom. So now, if you have any questions, step number 7, I almost forgot, is savings. Once you get to this spot, that's where you're saving money for retirement. That's where you're able to invest, either stock market, or if you maybe do real estate, or maybe you invest in where you expand your business. If you started a business here and maybe you expanding that business because you got, you know, a little foothold and you're making money. So that would be the one here, and also have fun. This is the one my wife always has to remind me to do this one. I don't have any problem saving money. I don't have any problem not getting into debt anymore. I do real estate investing. I have stock market investing. I own 5 different companies. But this is the one also here. You have to have fun. And last year, I believe we took 4 trips. This year, this year is early, and I think we're on our 3rd trip, and we're probably gonna take maybe about 6 trips this year. So you do have to have fun, because you don't, if you don't do this, then all of this stuff here could you could have a feeling that, you know, that you did all this stuff for nothing. So if you ever have any questions, I invite you to go to our website, thecreditrepairshop.com. If you're ever interested in getting a debt elimination plan put together for you, you can reach out to our company, and that is something that we also do for our clients. So if you have any questions, or please put your comments below on what you thought about this training. I know it was a little bit, well, you know, I went into a little bit more detail, but that's just the way that it has to be, because it's that when you're looking at getting out of debt and improving your credit, sometimes it's not as fun as we would like it to be, but this is serious information, and if you take advantage of it, it will make a difference in your life. So this is Stephen Williams with thecreditrepairshop.com. Thank you.